one of the key characteristics that I found in many successful people is having this never say die attitude and having a very positive outlook in life. Right? And I certainly sense that from you as well. So is it something that you feel that you are born with, or is something that you feel can be cultivated to being a positive and confident person?
I believe this can be cultivated. So one of the early stories I forgot to share with you just now that changed my life was one day when we had to organize a charity event. So during that period of time in school, we had to clock in some community involvement project hours. So you must clock a certain number of hours as part of your school module. And that was in secondary 1 and secondary 2, 13 to 14 years old. And at that time, I was a very negative person, okay? I was a very negative person. I was very angsty. I listened to a lot of heavy metal. And I have a very negative view of the world. Right? And even though I do a lot of projects, they were out of curiosity. It's not out of positivity. It's out of restlessness. And so what the project involved was we had to organize a race for mentally handicapped children. So it's a sports meet where they will have like 400-meter race, 100-meter race. So I remember when my class chairperson proposed that we go and organize this charity event with our seniors, in my head, I was rolling my eyes and I was sighing because that meant I had to give up one whole weekend to do this event. And I thought, oh my God, I've been spending all my time in school. Now school won't even let me off, ask me to do this community involvement project. So I went into that event with a very, very negative attitude. So one of my roles at that event was to be a timekeeper. So I will stand at the finishing line and I will record how fast or how much time the participant took to finish the race. And then after that, I'll report my timing to someone who will be overall in charge of all the time. And halfway through, I started to realize that the whole atmosphere was very, very positive. And I thought it would be I thought I would be depressed. I thought it would be very sad because I'll be hanging out with a lot of children with handicaps. I thought it's going to be depressing, and I cannot, I got to prepare myself for all the events that happened. But I was totally surprised. All the children that day were wildly supportive of their teammates and friends running the race. So when you look at the stands, the spectator stands, all the kids were on their feet cheering their friends on. Now, when I compared it to our school sports day, I'm not trying to put down my school, but we are so-called the normal teenagers. We would be like, huddled in our own cliques, talking to one another, playing our own games. Like, I think only 50% of the school participants were supporting their friends in the race. But these kids, right, they were cheering everyone on, whether they were strangers or friends. So the positive attitude was starting to rub on me. And then I started feeling happier and more positive, and I started smiling and joking with all the other people working at the event. But there was one boy that totally reshaped my life in terms of having positive or negative outlook. So this boy, he came onto the tracks wearing spike shoes. So when you wear spike shoes, right, it means you are a pro. Right? Mm-hmm. So in Singapore's context, if you go for a school event with spike shoes, athletic shoes, that means you are a professional. Don't mess with you. Okay, so he came in with a swagger and he had a tiny FBT shorts, which makes him look even more like a professional. He came in with a swagger, except when I look at his body, it didn't seem very fit and athletic. So he was very skinny and he walked in with a swagger, very confident. And I'm like, wow, this guy is so cocky. He better win this race and I'm going to put my money on him, right? And when he went onto the tracks, he actually acknowledged all the timekeepers, which is not something a child would do. He acknowledged everyone and he made friends with the people in his adjacent lanes. So you're talking to the competitors in his adjacent lane. Very confident, borderline cocky. And he did stretching, warm-up exercises and got into his crouching position and beep, boom, the starter gun fired. Everybody started running. Guess which position he was in, Stanley?
The last?
He was the last. And here's the thing. Everybody zoomed past him and he was the last. And he's not even like lagging a few centimeters or a few meters behind. He was way behind by almost a mile. And here's the thing. I felt very, very sorry for him. Because firstly, if I were in his shoes, I would feel wildly embarrassed. So I felt very embarrassed for him. So that's one. Second thing, his body, he had a weird gait, right? So I suspected not only was he mentally handicapped, physically he was handicapped as well. So I felt very sorry for him. I'm like, wow, a very poor thing, very poor thing. But this kid, right, when he came in to the 100-meter starting point, so he had the last 100 meter to run, and the spectators were all standing there. Guess what he did? He turned to the spectators, raised both hands like that, like a rock star, blew kisses, and then he started jogging slowly, his own time, and the entire stadium went wild. All the kids were screaming. They were climbing the railing and they were cheering, they were shouting. It was like, it was as if like, you know,
A scene from Rocky.
it was like a scene from Rocky. It's like a scene from the World Cup, I tell you.
Right.
Right, everyone was standing and screaming, and the teachers were like, "Calm down, kids, you know, calm down." And the teachers trying to control the kids, they were out of control. They were screaming and cheering this guy, and this guy was just running, and he turned around backwards and with swagger, and he continued waving and running backwards, and then he turned forward again, and he completed the race. And when he finished, right, he acted like he won. He came in, he acted like he won. He turned to the crowd, you know, he blew kisses to everyone, and at first I thought he was living in his own world. He wasn't. He went to congratulate everyone else.
Right.
He went to congratulate the winner, and he came to me because I was the one taking the time for his lane, and he shook my hand and he said, "Hey, thank you for helping out today." And he went to the other timers as well and said, "Thank you for helping out. Thank you for helping out." And he went back. He looked like a winner. So that day, right, that incident stayed in my mind for a very, very long time. So I realized that happiness can be cultivated despite whatever disabilities or despite whatever setbacks you may face. If you have that kind of positive attitude, you know, you will perceive things in a different way. So, you know, I learned that, but, you know, when I was younger, I'm not so philosophical. So I just thought, oh, I can choose my own happiness. I can choose to be happy. I can choose to be positive. And I think if I were to phrase that lesson now, how to cultivate a positive mindset is actually by cultivating your perspective, which is what Stoic philosophy and what Buddhist philosophy will teach you. Okay, I'm not talking about the religion, I'm talking about the philosophy. So there are tools and methods and ways of thinking to rewire your brain to perceive things in a new light. So nowadays, every time when I feel down or when I feel sad or when I get too stressed out and when things are not working out, I will always try to remember this boy, because we remember stories better. And I always remember that, hey, I can choose my own perspectives. I can choose to be happy with what I have. I can choose to win my own race, run my own race. I can choose to win at my own game. I don't have to compare myself with others. Yep.
Wow, Jerry, that's such a powerful story. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that.